In this video I'm going to introduce you briefly to ActionBound, which allows you to create outdoor GPS gamified experiences. There are some other tools that are very similar to this, but this has a number of advantages. There is a free version, and also you can deploy it to both Android and iOS devices. So the activities that we use in this particular tool are called bounds, and as you can see there's an option at the top there to create a bound. Now in order to use this tool you will need to create an account. You can see that I've created an account here, so I'm going to just click onto my bounds because I've been into the tool before and I have created this bound here. But in this example I'm going to create a new bound, so I simply click on the blue cross. Now the bound is going to be something that encompasses a series of location-based activities, but I'm just going to give it a general title. Just call it my example bound. I've done that once before. I need to give it a unique URL. Again, I've done this before and then I deleted it. So I've got this one called my example bound and it's Dave's example as a URL. You can have single player or multiplayer. And you can have a fixed sequence or a flexible sequence. Now a flexible sequence is very good for game-based activities because it gives you the opportunity to give people different pathways based on what they do at particular locations. But just to keep this example very simple, I'm going to leave it as single player and fixed, and I create my bound. So what I need to do now is to put some stuff into my bound. If I click the cross to add the first element, you'll see that the sort of menu bar pops up on the right hand side. There's a whole raft of different things here. So we've got stages which can structure sections, just information points, quizzes, for example multiple choice quizzes if you like, missions which are more general open-ended activities, there's no right or wrong answer, finding spots, which is very important, this is the GPS location components. Or you can scan codes as well, so you can have QR codes integrated into the game. You can have surveys, and you can have what are called tournaments, which is where team members will play against each other. So you can see there's a couple of sort of gamification ideas in there. But perhaps the most important thing about a GPS location-based activity is finding spots. So let's do that first. Let's create a spot. Now the first thing we have to do is to provide our mission briefing. You can see that you can do this as text, and the examples all come from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, but I will change that to something else. So I'll just put go to the first location. I'll keep this all very general. You can see that it doesn't have to be text or just text. You can have images, videos, sound, links and so on. So they don't have to be simplistic. If you want to have something a bit more interesting, you can do that. And you can see it's also gamified. There's this idea that each location can have points associated with it, and you can scale this up and down or type in a different number if you like. I'll leave that at 100. The important thing, of course, is the coordinate. So how do we specify the first spot? Well, the most important thing here is that we can select a GPS coordinate using a Google map. So all we have to do is to click on select on the right hand side and we'll get Google Maps. Now this tool was developed in Berlin, so the map always starts in Germany. It's a bit clunky in the sense that you can't drag the pins. There are some of these tools where it's quite easy to drag the pins around. Unfortunately that's not the case in ActionBound, so all you can do is click. So what I need to do is click and then kind of zoom in. So I'm going to aim for the Auckland Mind Lab in this particular example. So that's up here. So I'll click down here and you mark it, and then I'll just keep zooming in until I've got to the right place. So yeah, a bit clunky. Would be nicer if you could drag the pin, but hey. So somewhere around here, what I'll do is I'll put the satellite on so I can pin it down to our car park. So not quite there, a bit too far away, so zoom in a little bit more and maybe pick the end of the Mind Lab car park. So I've set my first pin, so that's where we're going to go to first. So all I then need to do is to click OK, and there's my coordinate. Now there are some settings you can do. For example, you've got a choice here. You can either show an arrow, which makes the phone kind of operate like a compass until the location is reached, or you can show the map. So either of those are kind of cool. I found in past activities that students kind of really like the compass view, so it's kind of nice to mix them up, but I'll do a map for this example. And then there's this button that says whether or not they have to go to that spot to continue. So again, it depends how you want to structure your game. And all I need to do is to click add. So that's created my first spot, which is this location here. And then I can keep adding things as I go. So let's add one more thing for this very simple example. I'm going to add a quiz. So I'm going to click the quiz button. Now there are a number of different types of question. The example again comes from Monty Python. Up to what number shalt thou count before thou throw the holy grenade of Antioch? So, well, let's stick with that one, shall we? Again, you can put other things in there. It doesn't just have to be a text question. What you need to think about is what type of question you want to answer. So if we click on the Answer tab, you'll see that there are several choices. You've got a text input, multiple choice, estimating a number, or sorting a list. So just for this particular example, I shall choose estimate a number, and we'll do the holy hand grenade of Antioch. I think the correct number was actually 3 in the film. Oops. 3 minutes. So range, well, let's do our range from, let's say, 1 to 5, which is what King Arthur mistakenly says in the film before he throws the hand grenade at the rabbit. And then there's this deviation here, which is whether you allow sort of a deviation where they can get some points if they're close. I guess that kind of depends on the question. There are some other settings you can have. For example, whether it has to be correct for them to continue, how many attempts they can have, what the penalties are, and so on. And this is, again, part of that sort of gamification thing. And you can have a time limit. So you've got a number of different options there. That'll do. It's only an example. So I've got a question, I've got some answers, I've got some settings. Click add, away we go. The deviation for the 10% point deduction apparently must be greater than 0, so I shall just make that 1. Okay, let's click add. So what I've basically got is just 2 stages. I'm not going to do anything else to my bound at the moment. I'm just going to give that a try and test out what I've got so far, which is clearly really, really basic, but just about enough to see how the thing actually works. So what do I need to do? Well, if I go back to my example bound, you'll see there's a couple of things that we can do. For example, we can test it. So if I test it, I've got this barcode that will pop up, and this will allow me to test my particular application. Now it's important to note that in order to do this testing, you have to make sure that you have installed the app on your mobile device. So that's something else that we need to have a look at. So once we've covered that, we'll come back and try out the application itself. So this is ActionBound, running in this case on an iPhone. So I've just gone to the App Store, downloaded it, and this is the screen that it starts with, and it contains a number of different options. And one of the options, this one here, is scan code. So that will allow me to scan the test code that I got out of my bound, and then I can test it. So let's just press that, and it should allow me to do some scanning. So let's pick this up and move over and scan the code. Okay, there we go. I'm going to start the bound. There's some stuff about it being in test mode, and it says tester at the bottom, so I'm just going to click let's go, and this will take me to the first part of my bound. Now of course remember this was a location, and you can see it says go to the first location, and that's this one here. That's a long way out actually. Let me zoom in. Maybe go to satellite. And then we can see exactly where we are, which is there. So what the game is now asking me to do is to go to that first location where I can get 100 points. So just to finish up, this is what the application looks like running on my iPhone. This is a screen capture showing the first location as the red pin, and also my own GPS location as the blue circle. There's also another view here which is the satellite location, so you can see it's currently in the car park of the Mind Lab, and as soon as I move close enough towards the red pin, it will trigger this screen and tell me that I can move on to the next activity. So hopefully that's enough for you to be able to create your own bound and give it a bit of a try.